Those Were the Days is filmed before a live internet audience.
Come on in. Come to the place where fun never ends. Come on in. It's time to party with Those Were the Days, the show where we look at classic TV through a modern lens, but with nostalgic eyes. I'm your host this week, Travis, and with me are three amazing co-hosts. Noted Monday hater and nap enthusiast, Amy.
Hello.
For some reason wearing a pool floaty with his own face on it, Audie.
Arf!
And the cutest kitty cat in the entire world, Steven.
Oh, hey.
So we are starting a new topic this week. We are going to be diving into Saturday morning cartoons. So grab your favorite sugar-encrusted cereal, take a spot in front of the couch, and join us as we fondly remember these wonderful cartoons from our youth. We're going to start off with one of my favorites, and that is Garfield and Friends. So Garfield is a comic strip in the newspaper. For those of you that don't know what a newspaper is, it was a thing that you used to get. It's not just for wrapping fish and chips. So
I felt that one, Travis.
Don't believe me. So I was an avid comic strip reader. I would get the comics page in our local paper every day, and then on Sundays I would grab the comics section and I would disappear with it and read it. And Garfield was always one that I read. Garfield, as a comic strip, started out in 1976, actually, as a comic called John, and it ran for a couple of years only locally in one newspaper. And then it got picked up, syndicated nationally. They changed the title of it to Garfield, and it went on to be one of it set a Guinness record for syndicated comics in over 2,500 newspapers around the world. In 2002, I believe, is what it was at. Let's see. They also made upwards of $750 million a year in merchandise by 2002. Like, it was a huge thing, and it's all from the mind of Jim Davis. Jim Davis created it. He drew it for the longest time. He now mostly just comes up with the stories and does the rough sketches, and he has a couple of assistants that kind of finish it out for him. But he's also was in charge of all the marketing and merchandising and all that kind of stuff. The original characters were John Arbuckle, who is a cartoonist, Garfield, his cat in orange, fat tabby cat, hates Mondays, loves lasagna. Lyman, John's roommate, who was only in the comic strip for the first about 4 or 5 years, and then they just wrote him out. He was originally created as somebody for John to talk to. And Odie, who was Lyman's dog. Odie was not John's dog originally.
Look at that.
After they wrote Lyman out of the strip, John adopted him, and then they ended up retconning it later on. Because when you have a daily comic strip for 40-something years, you are going to retcon a few times. So Garfield and Friends. Oh, there were also 73. There have been 73 books published of Garfield comic strip collections. At one point, a friend of mine had like all of them up until somewhere in the mid 90s, and that was like 40-something, I think. So there are a lot of comic strips for Garfield out there. Garfield and Friends was a Saturday morning cartoon that ran from September 17th, 1988 to December 10th, 1994 on CBS Saturday mornings, and consisted of 121 episodes. Each episode was 3 segments, 3 shorts. Usually it was 2 Garfield and then 1 U.S. Acres, which was another comic strip that Jim Davis created, and ran from, I want to say it was like 84 to 88, something like that the comic strip ran. But the actual U.S. Acres on the animated series outlasted the comic strip, which I thought was kind of funny. And then they would do little like Garfield or U.S. Acres quickies in between the 5 to 10 minute cartoons. Now we watched season 4, episode 4, which was, it had 3 comics in it. The first one was Garfield, and it had to do with Garfield's blueberry pie being eaten.
Yeah.
So, and then we had a U.S. Acres where Orson Pig was answering fan mail, and finally a Garfield where they went to the supermarket. And we're going to dive into kind of all of that as we go, but a couple of bits of trivia from this episode that I thought were really cool were the voice of Gramps and Mr. I think it was Mr. Bagger, who was the owner. That was Paul
Gargamel.
Winchell. Yep.
I
He's
knew
best
I
known as
recognized it.
Gargamel.
I was like, this is the best part about watching these old cartoons is because, I mean, it's the same
Oh,
thing with
yeah.
cartoons now, but we know all their names. But when we were
Mhm.
kids, we didn't know all their names. So it's just like, but it's all the same voice actors. And
Yeah,
they're just like-
Tigger.
I was like, that's Gargamel.
I heard
He was the
Tigger,
voice
you
of-
heard Gargamel.
Yep. He was
Mhm.
also the voice of Dick Dastardly.
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
The wacky
nice.
racist and all of that.
The wacky races.
So I loved that. I really dug the fourth wall breaks. And those happen
were a
throughout the
lot.
show, but there are a
Mhm.
lot of them.
Mhm.
And I definitely am going to want to talk about Lorenzo Music as the voice of Garfield.
Oh yeah.
So first, though, now that I've given a little Garfield background, I want to go around and I want to get your background with Garfield. I'm going to start with Audie. Audie, what's your background with Garfield as a comic strip, as a show? What do you remember about it?
Oh, well, I mean, of course I love the comic to begin with. Like, that goes without saying, but I'm going to say it anyways because I love the comic strip. I think Garfield is one of those comic strips that all us art nerds it's one of the first ones we start to try and draw because it's such a fun and easy
Mhm.
character to draw. Big ol' eyes, couple lines here and there, and then squiggles for his stripes, and that's it. But something about Garfield, you talked about how big Garfield has become. There's something about that character that just everybody can relate to and have fun with. So
Sure.
I definitely read the comic like crazy. I never collected any of the books, but still followed the comic. And then I definitely was into Garfield and Friends. Like as soon as we were watching this episode and the theme song came on, I was like, "Oh, I remember this." I was looking up some other stuff and don't remember the theme song from the first couple of seasons that they did. Like it was a different theme song and it was kind of weird. And I was like, glad they changed it.
Yeah, they
Um,
definitely went to a much catchier theme song
Mhm.
after the first couple of seasons.
Had to be inspired by
Yeah.
Greatest American Hero. They wanted to get on Billboard. I mean,
Exactly.
But yeah, I
Amy,
loved it.
all right, that's good, and it makes sense too. Like it's a good art style to get started with. I feel
Mhm.
like. So Amy, what's your background with Garfield?
So I also loved Garfield. I remember definitely having a bunch of the comic strip books. I mean, I used to read it in the paper, right? Because it's like the one that's made for you because it's not Mallard, Fillmore, or Zippy, right? So at least this one,
Right.
when you're a kid, you're like, I got this one. All right.
Mhm.
But I definitely remember reading the books, but I don't think they were mine. Like I think my friend Doug got them, and then I would get them like as hand-me-downs when he was done. I would borrow them and read all of them. I definitely had an awful lot of Garfield merchandise, which is probably still somewhere at my parents' house, which would be cool. But actually I had a Garfield birthday cake one year. I have a cake for like every show that we're gonna talk about. It's gonna happen.
Apparently.
It sounds like it. Yeah.
But it was the cake pan came with plastic eyes because that's like the hard part. And if you don't get that right, then it's definitely not going to look like Garfield. So it came with
Oh,
like
yeah.
a plastic piece that you put for his eyes. And yeah, and I definitely watched the show. I mean, not to the point where like I couldn't tell you anything. Like I remembered breaking the fourth wall, but I didn't remember breaking the fourth wall quite so much. It was a lot. I was like, okay.
It was.
No,
Steven,
this
how
is
about
season 4, so you
yeah?
know,
They've been at it for a little while.
Yeah.
yeah.
And that doesn't stop either. Like that's a thing throughout. I've watched a few episodes of it
Oh, yeah.
in remembrance, and it definitely keeps doing that. Steven, how about you? What's your history with Garfield?
I
have
definitely
one?
remember watching the show. I didn't remember it being a Saturday morning cartoon. I always thought I watched it when I came home from school, which I very well could have. Like, I mean, it ran forever, so I don't know if it was syndicated in the afternoons or it's hard to tell when your memories just blend all together. It's like, was that Animaniacs and Tiny Toons? Was Garfield mixed in? Or I thought I watched it in the morning before school. So I don't remember as far as Saturday morning goes, but I I mean, I remember loving this theme song, and I watched the show a bunch. I don't have a deep-rooted emotional connection to Garfield. Like, it's not one of those that's, like, sat down and like, I can't wait till Garfield and Friends comes on. But I don't think that's as much Garfield as it's just the way I watch TV. Was generally like, it's on, therefore I am watching it.
Mm.
That's kind of how there will be a theme throughout those were the days that's basically how I discovered everything. It was on, so I watched it. But I did love US Acres, and it was really fun when this music came on. Like you talked about the theme song being catchier. Like this is the theme song I remember. It's like, oh snap, Garfield and Friends. But like I remembered all that. I remembered him popping out at the end and saying stuff, and there was stuff in US Acres because I don't know why that segment stood out more to me in my memories. I just loved the characters of Orson Pig and Sheldon and all those guys, and I loved Garfield. But that moment with US Acres is the part I always seem to be hooked into,
Mhm.
which was really cool. So it was really fun to go back and watch a cartoon. I wasn't sure how Saturday morning cartoon time would go for me because I'm the 8-year-old that enjoyed Taxi. But I really did dig going back and watching it. I was like, I could throw this on like while I'm working in the corner and just have Garfield going and enjoy it. And I don't know where we're headed in terms of conversation, but I do have plenty of thoughts about all the different, aspects of the show. So I'm excited to get into it.
So one thing I'm going to say real quick is when I was watching this and US Acres started playing, I immediately thought this is the part that Steven's going to like.
Really?
Somehow I saw you identifying with Orson
Yeah.
without us having talked about it ahead of time. Like I'm just like, that's Steven is Orson.
Wow.
And he's going to love US Acres.
That is
So,
exactly right. Well done.
So I'm excited about all of these like kids shows. Like every time we're gonna do it like a kids show thing, because Steven is a handful of years younger than the rest of us, which is negligible as a grown up. But when you're talking about stuff from your childhood, 4 or 5 years means like you could have missed something entirely. And so I'm like super
Mhm.
excited about this.
That's a really good point. Like you take 4 years, and that's a generation.
Yeah, when you're a kid, because like
in kid life.
stuff doesn't stick around.
No,
Mhm.
You know?
no, absolutely
Yeah.
not. Yeah, that's gonna be fun. I'm excited
Yeah.
about this.
So, Amy, did you have a favorite of the three segments or anything like that? Did you have a favorite moment in this the particular episode?
I think, I mean, all right. So there was a favorite joke
Okay.
from the first segment, which I would have flown harmlessly over my head as a child. But it's after John forgets to give him the ice cream and Garfield yells, "Remember the a la mode." And I was like, that should not, no, that's way too clever for this show. But I think the third segment with the grocery store was probably my favorite
Oh,
of the
yeah.
three.
That is classic Garfield and Friends, where it gets to this level of absurdity, and
Yeah.
I just love that so much. Audie, how about you? Did you have a favorite of the three segments?
I'm gonna start the same with Amy. My favorite joke was in the first part when Garfield's asking the one mouse to be the judge, and he's like, "Sure, I want to be on a few more episodes this season." I was like, "Wow." Kid me didn't get that at all, but
No.
adult me is like, "That's hilarious." Oh my gosh.
Mhm.
But no, I really like the US Acres bit. Mainly just revisiting that. Like, I don't think I've watched like Garfield is beloved and all over the world. US Acres doesn't have that kind of coverage.
Yeah.
And so it was fun to watch that again because I think that's where they got a lot more smarmy.
I
With their-
remember not liking it as a kid though. Like I remember
Really?
that was like, yeah. Like I mean I like Wade because he's great.
Mhm.
But I remembered like not like that was like the part you got through to get to the other Garfield.
Now that's interesting to me. Did your local comic section of your paper have US Acres, or was it only Garfield?
I
Because
don't
could
think
that be
so.
part of it? Is that you're like,
I mean maybe.
as a kid,
Right, because
you
I
read
have
Garfield.
no attachment.
Yeah.
to anyone in that, and it's just in the way of my Garfield. It's probably what that is.
Yeah,
It's
I
the
don't
I
think
moment
get a
we
you
had the
refill
strip at
on my
all.
cereal.
I
Yeah.
don't think we had the strip at all when I was growing up because I don't remember it before the show at all, like
Same.
at
Yeah.
all.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I
So
don't
I
either.
figured out later. I think when I was in college at SCAD, we were talking about it at some point. Somebody pointed it out, and it was one of those jaw dropping, like, okay,
Yeah,
kind of
and it came
moments.
along several years later, but it did have the distinction of when US Acres debuted, it debuted in 550 newspapers nationwide, which is huge, which are huge numbers,
Yeah.
especially at the time. And that was on the strength of it being a Jim Davis
Oh yeah,
comic.
absolutely.
Okay, how about Stephen? How about you? Did you have a favorite
I had
moment?
Well, yeah, absolutely. And it's much along the lines of what Amy was talking about. It's just that joke that goes over your head. And I laughed
Mhm.
out like I cackled. And it was in U.S. Acres when Sheldon is running from the weasel. He shouts, "It's worse than that time those women tried to get pantyhose out of me." And I died because all I could think of was those little pantyhose eggs.
Yeah.
And I knew there's not a child or adult
No.
who would watch that nowadays and have any idea. Like, so I
Yeah.
was so happy with that one joke. I was like, that's it. This is the greatest thing I've ever seen. This is fantastic. So that one really got me as an individual moment, but the supermarket segment, that was an entirely different level of comedy and political statement of a particular time and place. Like nowadays,
Yes.
Mhm.
nobody gives a flip about Walmart because there are no more mom and pop grocery stores.
Yeah.
You don't go to Jim's Grocer anymore. So we don't think about it because it's not there. But there was a time when
Mhm.
the invasion of Walmart was a big deal, and it was in the early
Mhm.
90s.
Yep.
So I found that to be very fun to watch, and just from a lens of history, and sad to watch at the same time.
It was, but and it was one of those where again, it's that absurdity. It's like you have 180 aisles or whatever it is, and they're talking
That's
about
how
take
I
a
feel
left
when I
at
go
the
to Wegmans, though. It
Sure.
is definitely like a mile and a half from end to end.
Take a 3 miles after you pass the plums, and that's where
Yeah.
your stuff will be. Yeah.
That's where you're going.
Mm.
By the way, the least realistic part of that to me was John buying 1 pound of flour. Who buys 1
You
pound of
can't buy
flour?
but you can buy a pound of sugar. It's a
Yeah,
5-pound bag of flour.
yeah,
And
always.
your options are 200, 100, or 1.
Yes.
I used to work maybe this is part of it too, right? I worked grocery for half a decade. And I worked at a Whole Foods before Whole Foods existed, but it was that kind of store, and we had like the bulk department. And so it was me throwing around 50-pound bags of flour because that's how flour comes.
Mhm.
Hmm.
So I was, come on, guys.
Now you go to
So for
Costco for
me,
that.
yeah, for me, I think a favorite moment of mine, it's got to be the meta joke of the mouse saying, yeah, I'll do whatever it takes to get more episodes this season. Like
Mhm.
I just love like that. The meta humor in general in
Mhm.
Yeah.
the entire episode was great, but that one in particular tickled me. But it's the supermarket. It's the supermarket for me. It's just
It's so
so
good.
silly. It's great sending Odie off to get the flour because
Triple
there's like this
coupons.
there's this fine line with John in the Garfield comics of does he understand that Garfield and Odie are a dog and a cat
Right.
and can't actually like shouldn't be able to understand him but do, or is he there's the bit online where they take Garfield comics and they take Garfield out of it
Yep.
Yeah,
and
yeah,
it's
yeah.
Mhm.
Garfield without Garfield
Yeah.
and it's
Or
just a
Arbuckle.
sad
There's 2
yeah
versions, and it's neither of them are pleasant.
no
Forget
it's
one.
just
It's a
a
sad
sad
story.
sad man it really is but there's like this fine line because he just tells Odie, hey, go get me 1 pound of flour, and Odie knows exactly what's going on and he goes to get it like a good
And
dog
talks
would
to
do.
the employee.
Yeah.
That's the other good part. The
Mhm.
employee immediately knew, oh, are you looking for 1 pound bags of flour, little dog? Like without talking to him at all. Just go for it. And I loved like the scanning machine and how he's just wringing
Yeah.
his hands, talking about the scanning machine, how it
No
gives
one
whatever
knows but
price and no one knows.
He's not
Because
wrong. He's not
I mean,
wrong.
when you think about it though, like think about pre those automatic scanners in grocery stores, you were,
Mm.
everything was getting punched in by hand. each
Yeah.
individual price, and you were watching that pop up on the screen. And then when those scanners come along, I think of going to like Aldi is the one that always amazes me, because for some reason Aldi grocery stores have the most sensitive and perfect scanner of all time. Like, because the clerk sit, which I think is great for them,
Mm-hmm.
but the stuff's coming down the belt and they're just grabbing things, waving it past the scanner and throwing it into a cart like a conveyor belt,
I
and
used to be
quickly.
my favorite used to be baby food, right? Because this was the all natural grocery store before they were everywhere, right? And so like people would come stock up on stuff. So somebody would show up with like 200 jars of baby food, and I perfected this spin move so that no matter which way you
Nice.
grabbed it, it would it'd hit the barcode. Those were good times.
That's
But for
great.
some
Meanwhile,
reason they
I'm at
can't
Home
get.
Depot with the gun going pew 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 pew, wasting
Well, then you go to the
everyone's time.
self checkout line, and you can't get that to scan anything ever
Oh, I'm
for
a pro.
to save your life. Like, it's just like I have done everything I can, and it's don't. Can you help me with this? And then you got to have that one person who's got to man like 18 registers to come over and help you out with it.
Well, you grab the one package of bacon where like the plastic is rolled over right over the barcode, where it just completely jacks it up, and it's airtight, so you can't move it around. You have to sit there and tug on it and fight with it, and like maybe if I bend it just right. This is a different show now, but I'm telling you,
Again, this is the After Hours show.
yeah, it's a rough experience.
So, all right. So, Steven, you had thoughts. I want to hear some of these thoughts you had.
Oh shoot!
on
Now
the show.
you're asking me unprompted. What were my thoughts? Oh, about just the overall art style and how they did this show. No one moves their mouth, y'all.
Nope.
None of these characters move their mouth, but we just accept that they understand each other. And it's like, you're right, Travis. It leads to the confusion. Like, does John? Can he hear them? Like, are they communicating telepathically with each other? Because there's no movement anywhere. I also was really excited. The only other thing that really struck me was that the mouse jury had 12 mice on it. Completely accurate. Well done. The mouse legal system is very similar to the American legal system. And I thought that was a nice bit of trivia to throw in there. Yeah, those are the two thoughts that I just brought.
I like that it was the shoe rack.
Yes.
Which
Yeah, and you had to empty it
whose
first.
slippers were those with the flowers on them?
John's, I think.
I mean,
why couldn't they be
they're real
John's?
good.
you
I mean, they
know?
could be John's. It just isn't. I
mean,
mean, I
he's a
suppose
cartoonist.
I
We're
did
weird folk.
watch. I did watch later, and it did show off his very nice plaid leisure suits. So, yeah, those could be.
Oh,
his.
and John is known for his terrible fashion sense in
That's
general.
true.
Like,
Yeah.
Garfield makes fun of it all the time, so
True.
they very well were his slippers. Yeah, I like that. I also loved I forgot I did love the joke right before that where Odie brings out the book and Garfield's like, "Wait, you want a trial? You want a fair? Okay, we'll do it. We'll have a fair, impartial trial, and then we'll find you guilty."
Mhm.
That really
was so good.
perfect. I like the overall vibe of the show. You know, like so many kids shows, it's just just like the
Yeah.
sound effects and slapstick and lots of violence and lots of throwing things. And this show is a much more mellow tone. Garfield's just like, I'm eating pie, and then oh no, the pie's gone. We're gonna get somebody, and it's all just deadpan delivered. And we haven't talked about the voice actor for Garfield yet, who I was unfamiliar with the name till you mentioned it earlier, and once again unfamiliar because I have the memory of a goldfish. But that person, it made me realize why they cast Bill Murray in the infamous Garfield live action movie. They have very similar deliveries and style and tone.
All right, are you ready
Here
for
we go.
this?
Yeah.
Go
You
for
ready
it,
for
Travis.
this? Okay. So, voice actor for Garfield in Garfield and Friends, Lorenzo Music. Okay. Bill Murray did the voice of Garfield in the movie. Lorenzo Music did the voice of Pete Venkman on The Real Ghostbusters.
Oh snap!
Bill Murray was live action Pete Venkman. So,
Yep.
Wow.
which brings us to a little game I would like to play with everyone
Oh
Okay.
snap!
called Is It Garfield or Pete Venkman?
I
I have
I've
a
gotta
few.
have a
I have
sound
a few
for this.
audio
Hold on.
clips.
Wait. This is music. Give me. Okay, here we go. All right,
Excellent.
Travis. Now we can go.
All right. So I am going to play a sound clip, and I will ask one of you if it is Garfield or if it is Pete Venkman from The Real Ghostbusters. I'm going to start with Amy.
Okay.
So, Amy,
Okay.
here is your sound clip. Are you ready?
I'm ready. I cannot.
Oh, we can't hear it.
Oh, you can't hear that. Well, let me fix that. Hold on.
Editing.
All right. Now you will be able to hear it. All right. One more time. Amy,
Okay.
here is your sound.
Oh, I hope they have soft centers.
Is that Pete Venkman or Garfield?
Pete Venkman.
That is Pete Venkman. Correct.
Bing, bing.
All right, Audie. Now for you. Is this Pete
Mhm.
Venkman or is this Garfield?
Could we move this gig along before all this chocolate makes me break out?
I'm gonna go Garfield on that one.
That was Pete Venkman.
You lose.
Yeah. All right,
Yes,
Steven.
I
You
do.
ready for this? Garfield or Pete Venkman?
The service here is getting worse and worse.
Garfield.
That is Garfield. Correct. All right, Steven, one more for you. Is this Garfield or is this Pete Venkman?
You wouldn't be so happy if you knew I can't stop this thing.
Ooh. Garfield.
Correct. That was Garfield.
Hey, I'm a genius. Actually, the music
All right.
really kind of gives it away. The background noise.
You
Yeah, that was how I
you
got
would
it.
think that, but I had more trouble with it than like it was closer than you would imagine. All right, Audie, one more for you. Is this Pete
Okay.
Venkman or is this Garfield?
Reminds me of a college party I went to once.
Gonna go with Pete Venkman.
That was Pete Venkman, correct.
Nice.
And finally, Amy.
Got one in there.
Is this Pete Venkman or is this Garfield?
How did you dispose of the body?
Ooh.
Oh, that's Garfield.
Correct.
Nice. Good job.
Well
everybody.
done. Well done. That was a fun little game called Is it Garfield or Pete Venkman? Yeah, he did not vary his voice much
No,
at all
There's no.
for either of those roles. One of the things that I will always remember about Lorenzo Music is there was a special for Garfield many, many, many years ago on TV. And they were interviewing, it was a lot of behind the scenes stuff, and they interviewed Jim Davis. And at one point he said, he was talking about the different people involved in making the show. And he talked about Lorenzo Music. He's like, whose face I have never seen, because and they show him doing his voice work with his back to the camera. And he was famously not one that liked to have his picture taken a lot.
Sure.
So they never showed his face in the entire special. They would just
Amazing.
have shots of him from behind doing his voice work for Garfield.
Love
I
it.
thought that was funny. He was also a heck of a writer. He wrote, he co-created the Newhart show,
Holy crap.
and
Yeah, we're gonna visit
and he
that
wrote
one.
a bunch of stuff. So
Oh yeah.
Lorenzo Music was great, and it's the voice for me with Garfield. It doesn't matter that he hasn't done the Garfield voice since 1994, and he passed away in I think 2001.
Oh wow.
But that is the voice. Like when I read a Garfield comic, I hear
Mhm.
Lorenzo Music's voice in my head. And what I was curious about with that was if you saw the cartoon prior to reading the comic or vice versa, how does that affect the way that you read the comics? Like I have voices in my head for Calvin and Hobbes, let's say, but there's never been an animated version of that or any voices put to it. So I don't know how I would react once I saw it. Like if somebody did that, it would be hard for me to kind of disassociate what I have in my head because I've been reading those for so long.
Yeah.
Do you have that same thing happen to you, Amy, with like an animated or a live action version of something where you know the source material? Maybe it's a book that you've read a bunch, and then you see it portrayed. How does that reconcile for you?
Man, I don't know. I can adapt usually. I have a harder time. I think I have a harder time going from like a visual auditory to
Yeah.
like if I read something after, I bring all the baggage with me.
Okay.
Going
yeah.
the other way is a little more adaptable, I think. But that was like a big thing I did in middle school. I would like read all these books, the movies. Like famously, it was Neverending Story, and I brought all that baggage with me. So yeah, I think I have it's a lot harder to go that way. If I read it first, it's whatever, I'll adapt.
How about Stephen? What about you? Is that kind of
Yeah,
similar?
that kind of jives. Like I'm kind of open when it comes to the interpretation, and I don't have a ownership, so to speak,
Mhm.
of like how I envisioned in my head, and then a movie makes it. I'm like, this is wrong. Like I don't really live in that space. I kind of just let
Yeah.
storytellers bring their thing, and I enjoy it for what it is to the best of my ability. I'm sure there's some things that I would be like just a religious zealot about, but there's not that many. Um, so no, I'm pretty good about allowing it to breathe and just be its own thing, and not really let it affect my enjoyment of the thing. Harry Potter keeps popping in mind for whatever reason, and the best thing I got out of Harry Potter when they made movies of it was I learned how to pronounce Hermione. Because I could not pronounce that name in the book, and no one in here, no one
Mhm.
in America has the name Hermione. So I was like, Hermione. That's how it's pronounced until I heard it right, and then I'm like, that's much better. That's a much prettier name.
Now, does it? But in the other direction, if you say you have something that has made a mark on you, like Garfield and
Oh
Friends,
yeah.
do you now read Garfield with that
Yeah,
voice?
yeah. I'm sorry. I should answer that actual question that you asked. Yeah, that's definitely. I carry those voices into the art with me. Like it's real hard to disconnect it, and it's perfect. Like that's how I expect Garfield to sound. You know, it just matches up really well.
Yeah, Audie, how about you?
Yeah, same. It's funny you were talking about Lorenzo Music being the voice of Garfield. I actually went and watched the Fantastic Funnies, which had the
Mhm.
first actual animated appearance of Garfield. And it
Oh,
was
right.
not him, and it was weird. It was weird. Like my brain was just like, "That's not right. That's not right at all."
Not my
So
Garfield.
so I definitely carry Lorenzo Music with me as Garfield. The one thing I was thinking about in this whole case is like I remember reading The Martian and then they made the movie. So like I don't know if I had a specific voice in my head, but once they made the movie, I was like, "Oh yeah, Matt Matt Damon is Mark Watney. That's it."
Yeah.
So, and that's a book I like to reread every year. So I go back and I hear Matt Damon now every time I read it. So yeah, I think I'm open to the interpretation of whatever, and then we'll carry it with me.
Yeah, I do the same thing. I was just curious how other people did that because, again, certain voices become like when I read a Batman comic, I hear Kevin Conroy's voice in my head. That's the voice of Batman for me. You know, Tim Daly is my Superman. Regardless of how many different on-screen Supermen I see, there's something about his voice and his portrayal of it in the like Justice League Unlimited and stuff that I really really liked. Lorenzo Music is that I hear his voice every time I read a Garfield, and I still like. I had there's a takeout Chinese place in town that always has the newspaper there, so I grab the comics and I read that while I'm waiting for my food to
Yeah, that's
take
what
it
I do when
home.
I go to my
And-
parents' house. I read the comics.
Yeah, the people that still get a
Because they get a
newspaper.
newspaper.
Yep. You do the weird puzzle in the comics, whatever like version of Slylock Fox
Yeah,
you
the
guys
jumble
have.
or
Yeah, all
yeah.
that stuff.
Yeah.
You know,
Oh yeah.
I think some of this matters in terms of the voice. Does it match the look? Like Audie, you were thrown off, and it might be more because that voice just isn't that picture you're seeing. Like it just doesn't match. Like I'm imagining like if they decided Nick Nolte's a great Garfield. No, like that's never gonna work. So I would be pretty upset if they did that. But like we've got Mario Brothers up and coming, right? This Christmas.
Mhm.
And everybody just lost it over the casting of various characters. And I'm just like, dude, we've never seen anyone outside of Bob Hoskins and you know, maybe Captain what's his name? The wrestler dude that played him on the Super Mario Brothers Super Show.
Captain
gonna
Lou
say.
Albano.
Captain Lou Albert. So like, what do we have to stand on here? And you're not gonna have Martinet. What's his name? Dag nabbit, I'm slow today.
I know who
You
you're
know
talking
who I'm
about.
talking about? The guy who actually does the hoo-hoo in the games and stuff. Like you're not gonna have Mario going. It's a me. I'm a stereotypical Italian voice. That's not gonna happen, y'all. Like anyway, I
Okay,
just
but what if it did that?
what if it did? And Luigi was like,
I
mean,
"Aw."
on.
Yeah.
That's gonna work for about 45 seconds, and then you're just gonna be
Yeah.
jamming golf pencils in your ears to stop hearing it.
Exactly.
Super Mario
I'm a fan of the
Oh,
casting of
myself.
that movie in all respect because they're talented people with ability to
Mhm.
do. They're actors. They do things that you
Mhm.
didn't know they could do. That's the whole point. But yeah. Anyway, sorry, I'm off on a
The
tangent.
craziest thing that came up recently has been the Halo show, as they've got a different actor playing Master Chief compared to Steve Downes, who's voiced him forever.
Yeah.
And I've really liked it. Like, it's a whole different interpretation, and I dig the actor they picked, but it's wild for your brain to fight with that when you've heard this voice for this character
Mhm.
in this other medium,
Yep.
and then
Mhm.
in
Yeah.
this medium, it's someone totally different.
Yeah, I just
Oh,
want
sure.
when they make a Metal Gear Solid movie for them just to put David Hayter's voice on someone else's face so I can hear him say Metal Gear. You know, like this
Yeah.
very specific way you say that so that it
Mhm.
works.
Yes.
Metal Gear.
Yes, and he is the one who can say it.
Yeah.
Anyway, back to the cartoon.
Did did anything in the show, and I'll start with Steven on this, did anything in the show just not work? Like, did you not find something funny, or were you like just not into it, or
It was
did it all
great.
work? Like, it was
No.
23 minutes of greatness.
23 minutes of greatness. I loved the whole blueberry pie jury situation. I loved the okay, so I did love US Acres. If there was a I like what happened in that story, but the story overall, I'm like, I don't really care where Sheldon came from. Like, I didn't think we need the answer to Sheldon's
That was
origin.
definitely a season 4 story.
Yes.
Is
Right.
you know what I mean?
Mhm.
Like
That's a good
we were
point.
deep in it.
Yeah.
What do we do?
We need to figure out
Sheldon's
what to
origin?
do next. Yeah, why doesn't Sheldon come out of his egg? That's important. And but like I feel like it would have been more fun to have a story about Wade and all the rest of them getting into shenanigans. But it was fine. It was
Mhm.
fine. And the jokes in it, like the pantyhose thing, fantastic. But like sandwiched between the blueberry thing and then the glorious supermarket segment, I feel like if there is a weak point, it probably was US Acres, despite my love for those characters and the fun, overall.
Well, and it did have the great joke of the pantyhose joke. It also had the great joke of Sheldon didn't come out of his shell because he read a few newspapers before he hatched. Don't ask how
Don't
he
ask
got
about
delivery,
Mm.
and decided it would be better to just stay in his shell. Like
Mhm.
that also cracked me up.
Mhm.
It's funny because the very next episode was a very good US Acres where
Mhm.
Wade becomes the rainmaker or the rain
Mhm.
stopper. So that was a pretty good one.
That was great.
What did you think, Amy, of like the little like Garfield quickies, where it was
The
basically it was
quickies?
the daily strip that they would just take and animate and put in between as an interstitial? What did you think of those?
Yeah, I'd forgotten about those. And this one it's John just gives Garfield his entire steak, which that I mean, all right, listen. I had barbecue yesterday and my cat did have some of my brisket. Like so I I do know where this is coming from. And it did hit home pretty hard, and I am sure that she does make fun of me when I am not looking, so that one hit a little close to home for me.
Fair enough. Yeah, I loved those. I remember that because those were almost always like straight from the newspaper comic
Yeah.
strip,
Yeah,
and they
yeah.
would make those. Like I remember that exact 3-panel comic
Yep.
of Garfield making the faces.
Yep.
They might have used the Sunday ones because they were a little bit longer,
Yeah.
but I
Mhm.
definitely remember that one. Audie, what about you? I mean, as a cartoonist and an anime or artist, you probably liked those, I would guess.
Yeah, the only thing that bugged me, and this is like picking some super nits, is just the animation period was super cheap. Like you could see the
Mhm.
shadow that the actual moving animation cell was casting on the background, if you know what I'm talking about. So,
Mhm.
like that was the only thing that really stood out to me, but that kind of thing is going to stand out to me because I'm looking for it and looking at it. Um, and it stands out more just because I was looking at some of the earlier um, Garfield shows. Like a lot of when they were primetime specials, they were like, half hour, hour long. And before this series. So like I was watching some of those and those were a lot cleaner.
Mhm.
Which, is going to happen for a network like primetime special, that's going to be animated super well. Something that's
You're gonna
like
have
4, 5, 6 seasons in on, Saturday morning, just it doesn't have the budget for that regularly. So, again, super nitpicky. That's the one thing I would say was the only negative thing I saw. But other than that, like, I mean, everything's animated well.
Yep.
It's
Mhm.
just cheaply animated.
And
But I dug it.
the thing to remember too, this was 88 to 94. This was
Mhm.
all hand drawn, hand
Yeah.
animated. There is no computer usage at all for this because they just didn't have that at the time to use.
Mhm.
So yeah, you can definitely see where when you compare it to the primetime specials, it's very different.
Right.
And it was before the time of the squiggly lines on purpose stuff. Y'all remember when like every cartoon and
Yeah.
everything was like
Mhm.
if
Dr.
it
Katz. I've been
yeah.
watching home movies again. And they
Yes.
did it
Mhm.
for season like they did it for the beginning of season 1 and then they let it go and that was a good time. I'm glad that they just let that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
when it's like but I mean there's almost a need to differentiate between the new computer animation and the stuff that was hand drawn. And then it's like, well
Mhm.
then they tried to make it look hand drawn with computer animation by squigglies everywhere and it just didn't work. This was just a really clean like Looney Tunes-esque kind of like we're trying to do good quality lines and stuff, before now everything's oval mouths and CGI and there's themes that you
Yeah.
go throughout
Mhm.
Yep.
animation. It was just fun. I actually wrote down animation is great in my notes 'cause
Animation is great.
And
it can be so bad and this was really smooth. I appreciated it.
Mhm.
and I think part of it too is this was a Saturday morning cartoon that was not born out of selling
Toys.
merchandise.
Mhm.
Yeah.
There was merchandise that came about from it, obviously, and from the comic strip, but the cartoon wasn't created as a half-hour toy commercial.
Sure.
Right.
This
True.
was just taking Jim Davis and the fact that Jim Davis was also involved in the show
Mhm.
makes a huge difference. And yeah, I loved that aspect of like how it was just these simple little. It reminds me of the old Warner Brothers. They're shorts. They don't have to get too long. They don't have to try and tell like this long involved story. It's just Garfield had pie. He didn't have ice cream for it. When he comes back, his pie is gone. Well, that's it. We're putting Odie on trial.
The fact
And
that he has a ladder with a coat for
That was
getting
great.
into the
Specifically.
freezer was very good. I appreciate that. I aspire to that level of preparedness.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And then, of course, going grocery shopping, and Garfield's got his long list of grocery shopping items.
Cake,
Uh,
comma, carrot. Cake,
Yes.
comma, chocolate. Cake, comma, coffee.
I mean, that's how I like to do it.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. Yeah, this was just a super fun trip down memory lane for me because Garfield was one of the Saturday morning cartoons that I watched every week.
Yeah.
I remember like I would plan my Saturday morning around that. If something was playing opposite it, that was like I would watch that during commercial breaks. I would switch over to ABC or something and be like,
Man,
"Oh,
remember
that's
that?
I don't remember that." Yeah, yeah, there were actual
Oh,
commercial
boy.
breaks.
Yeah.
But
But like
it's
doing the
funny.
swap between.
Oh
Mhm.
yeah. Yep.
And then just
Cut.
hoping you caught like 30 seconds of the show before it went to commercial. Like you
Yeah.
had to
Mhm.
hope they were on different schedules.
Mm-hmm.
Right. It was
Previews,
always
but-
terrible when everybody was on a commercial
Picking
break at
up,
the same
you're like-
time.
Yeah. Then you're like, dang it.
Especially when you had to change the channel. Click,
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 Oh, God.
click.
click, click.
Oh
click.
yeah. Mm-hmm.
I had to explain
Sure,
to my
I gotta
son what
rotate all the
commercials
way back.
were. And that was weird. Like we're watching something on actual television and a commercial came on. He's like, well, just how do we skip it? We can't, son.
Mhm.
This is your life now.
Every time we go to my parents' house or stay in a hotel, it's like
Yeah.
I have to explain these are commercials.
Yeah, this is where they advertise to you, but nothing you want because we're watching like not Nickelodeon where they would advertise Kool-Aid all day. This is this is catheters and stuff for the old people. Liberty
Life
Medical.
alert. Liberty Medical.
Reverse
I
mortgages.
could probably still tell you phone numbers from 1987.
Probably.
Dude, I sang the
Oh,
Stick
man.
Stickly song to Sam the other day. It just stuck in my head. What now that I've said it,
Yep.
Write to me, Stickly, P.O. Box 963, New York City, New York State, 10108.
That's right.
Oh, well done. Well, my hat is off to you, sir.
Oh.
That was fantastic. Saturday. It's just I'm bummed that Saturday morning cartoons don't exist the way that they did
Yeah.
for us, because
Mhm.
growing up, that was when we got to watch cartoons. Then
Mhm.
eventually it became a thing that was on in the afternoon when you got home from school, but there was still just a limited slice of time that you could do that. This was even pre Nickelodeon. I can
Yeah.
remember these things. And
Mhm.
then we didn't have 24-hour, like, multiple cartoon networks and different, like, here's one that just plays old classic cartoons. Like, no, you got to watch what was on Saturday mornings, and then eventually the afternoon blocks would be your Animaniacs and stuff like that on Fox, or like old Hanna-Barbera cartoons would show up on like TBS. If you had cable and had the Superstation, you could
Oh,
watch
yeah.
like, Herculoids and stuff like that. But I really miss that idea of Saturday morning cartoons, because it was
Yeah.
like 6 a.m. to noon. It was a
Mhm.
6-hour block of just kids programming.
Yep.
And I was talking to a friend of mine last week about how we were going to be kicking off Saturday morning cartoons, and her response was like, I didn't watch many of those because by like third grade I was already sleeping till noon on Saturdays.
Wow.
And I'm like, I couldn't do that. I was up, like, I was one of the kids that was up at 6:30 in the
Mhm.
morning on a Saturday, and I was ready. I was there with cereal, and boom, I was in it for the long haul.
And then here at like noon when it ends, it would switch to, because I'm in New England, and so it would switch to candlepin bowling.
Ooh.
Oh yeah.
So when you knew
And
it was
then you were
over.
like, well, I guess we have to go outside.
That's yeah.
Yeah,
No,
when
that
it was
was
over,
that
it
was the thing.
over.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
then I remember the morph too, where it started off, it was like solid 6 to noon was all cartoons. And
Yeah.
towards the end of kind of the life cycle of Saturday morning cartoons, the show started creeping further and further, where it was like, oh, now at 11:30 we're going to show Saved by the Bell. Oh, now we're going to show an hour of Saved by the Bell from 11 to noon. And like,
And
it
then
would start
Beekman's
creeping
World.
these things.
I
Beekman's
remember
Beekman's
World.
World was one.
being
Yep.
at the end
All
of
of
the
that.
cartoons.
Yeah.
So,
I just remember Saturday morning cartoons was when you could watch the cartoons on the big TV in the living room.
oh yeah.
There you go.
That was,
Yeah.
that was the one time my parents would be like, "Yeah, it's Saturday, big TV in the living room, baby. Not tiny
by the way,
TV in my room, big TV."
That big TV in the living room weighed 3,000 pounds,
It
was
was
a
made of
wooden
wood.
frame
I was gonna say
with
it's furniture
a
on the
20
floor.
My grandmother, let me tell you,
yes,
my
and it was
grandmother
a
had like
27-inch TV too.
Yeah.
Like,
the
it wasn't
big
like this
cabinet
big
TV.
screen.
Mhm.
I would kill for the big cabinet TV now. Like
Yeah,
a modern version, but like
like in
it
a
was a nice.
cabinet.
My grandmother had one that was a nice piece of furniture.
My grandma
But
had
the
a
thing is,
big
if you
TV
tried to
that
move
died,
it,
and then she put the new TV on top of it. So it was just like a dead TV with a live TV on it with the rabbit ears. It just everywhere. It was great. And a VCR. She had all the movies.
and Phil in the chat brings up, wow, somebody had multiple TVs in their house. Yeah, you
Yeah, I
fancy.
did. Yes. Yeah,
Mm.
that's
We
because
had a
I had a
terrible one in our
Nintendo.
basement. We had like the old like when we upgraded to the TV with buttons and not knobs, the TV with the knobs went downstairs, and that's what my
Oh, yeah.
Nintendo was hooked up to you.
Yeah.
On you.
I was
Mhm.
so pumped anytime my parents would get a new TV because it meant I would get the old TV. And the old TV was
Yep.
always bigger than whatever TV I had. It's like I have the 13-inch TV, and then they went to like a nicer 27. I got the 24, which was a big wooden thing with the door that hid the buttons that you would put in.
Yes.
That was what
Mhm.
we had. It was awesome. Doot, doot, doot,
I
doot.
didn't have
Mhm.
my own TV till college.
Oh man,
Yeah.
yeah, that's
Same.
you lived the hard life.
I mean, I didn't until high school. I had, for a little while, I had the 9-inch black and white TV and it was rabbit ears. I'm like, that might be Johnny Carson. I'm not sure. I can't quite tell. I think I'm watching the NCAA tournament, but I'm not positive.
You need a
'Cause, like,
sibling
you
to
know,
hold it for you.
Right, and she never would.
Oh yeah,
So
I was definitely all my friends didn't have a TV in their rooms. A lot of kids would come over to my house to play Nintendo Because my parents were like, yeah, it's in your room. You can play Nintendo in your room where you're loud somewhere else. That was their investment was the TV, so I would go somewhere else to play Nintendo. That was really what it was when you got down to it.
It's wise. That is
Yeah.
a pro level move right there.
It was.
See, my parents did the opposite. My dad got a TV in their bedroom so he could go lie down and watch
That's
it.
good.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
That's also a pro move.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we don't have a
So-
TV in our room now. Something about health.
So we,
Uh,
yeah, I don't know. Who knows?
who cares?
So we are going to continue on this trek through Saturday morning Sugar Fest for the next 3 episodes. Next week, Audie is bringing us Voltron, Defender of the Universe.
Heck
Oh
yes.
boy.
This is one I remember too.
Yep.
So that'll be fun. We did get a little bit of feedback this week. No emails. I did check. So still, if you want to email us, thosewerethedays@gmail.com. Please do. We want to hear from you. Our
Mhm.
inbox is sad and lonely.
Mhm.
But we did get one response on Twitter, which was Matt the Meme Maker said, "Oh, I always love watching the show. So much nostalgia." And Audie followed up asking, which did you like more, Garfield or U.S. Acres? He liked Garfield more. That was his
Mhm.
segment. And I mean, that was me too. I preferred Garfield to U.S. Acres. If I watch it now, I'm going to love both.
Yeah.
But as a kid, because I read Garfield comics, I was the same way. It's like, okay, U.S. Acres is fine, but this is just passing the time until we get to the next Garfield cartoon.
I think my biggest change from when I was a kid is that, like, back in the day, it was like, oh, that Garfield, he's so funny. And now I'm like, Garfield, you are absolutely correct. What? Like, no one can do anything right.
Yep.
Everything is the worst. Could people
Yep.
please just leave us alone? Yeah.
Absolutely.
Garfield's sage wisdom. By the way, this is Saturday morning cartoons. Is anyone eating cereal while watching the show? Because I ate cereal.
Have
Mhm.
cereal.
Oh, okay. Amy's
Yes.
got
Cinnamon
cereal.
Life. Oh, yeah.
What cereal? Okay, next week we're gonna meet up. We have to know what cereal we ate while watching the cartoon. I had Captain Crunch today.
Very nice.
All right.
Very nice.
So
I've
you
Cinnamon
hate the
Life.
roof of your mouth. I got it.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, the flavor's still in there. Still
It
just
gets the flavor in there faster. It's like,
lodged.
That's true.
Into the ridges.
oh no.
All right. So we've got Captain Crunch. We've got Cinnamon Life. Audie, did
Yeah.
you have cereal this week
Frosted
while watching
Flakes.
Garfield?
Yeah,
Nicely done.
good
Mhm.
choice.
My cereal was eggs and toast this week. However,
So mature.
however, that
is
was
part
because-
of this complete balanced breakfast. We'll
Yeah.
accept it at this time.
one, somebody has to, and two, I hadn't been to the grocery store, so I didn't get any cereal. But
Cereal
I'm going to pick up
is-
cereal
No,
this
I want to
week.
get I'm gonna get the little tiny boxes of terrible cereal.
Yeah, yeah, because cereal's
yes.
$87 a box. So just
so
true.
expensive, guys.
just buy something real cheap. Those little boxes you could have a whole.
I'll tell you what,
Terrible ones.
I will tell you what, I will get cereal this week. I will come back next week, and I will let the three of you try to guess what I bought. Because I
Oh.
bet you, I will put down a crisp $5 bill that none of you will get it.
It's a malto meal
Right
cereal,
now.
isn't it? It's like apple
I am.
apples.
It
or
is not a
something.
it is not a multi-meal cereal, but I'm putting the line down right now. None of you will get this.
You
Honey
get the shredded
Smacks.
wheat where it's just like one big thing of shredded wheat.
You break it.
The
with
shredded
your
wheat where it
spoon.
was 2 bricks in the box. The
Uh-huh.
box was
Yeah.
2 bricks of shredded
Yeah.
wheat. No, it's not that.
Oh,
It
this
is not
the
that. So
best.
yeah, this has been super fun. I cannot wait to talk about Voltron next week, and we've got a couple more fun ones coming up. We also
Mhm.
have a straw poll up. It is on the Twitter account @ThoseDaysShow. We want your help choosing our next topic after Saturday morning cartoons. We got a few weeks to figure it out. So, but we have a poll up. We would like to hear from you. So please go to twitter.com/ThoseDaysShow. We'll pin that tweet and vote. Let us know what topic you want us to cover next.
For those
So,
listening on
and,
your podcast catcher, it's in the show notes.
Yes,
Yeah.
that will be in the show notes. So definitely let us know. Let us know what you want to see or hear us talk about. And always feedback at thosewerethedayshow@gmail.com or at @thosedayshow on Twitter. Either one. We want to hear from you. We want to hear what you think of the shows we've covered, of the stuff coming up that we mentioned. All of that. We really want to know. So come back for that. Come back for Voltron next week. Oh, I'm super excited about Voltron.
Yeah,
gonna
and
be
next
great.
week we're going to do season 1, episode 4
Oh,
for
yeah.
anybody
All right. And the
You can
link for
do-
that will also
if
be
you
in the
want-
show notes.
If you want to do just that one, that's fine. But if you want to watch the rest of it, have fun.
Mhm. So season 1, episode 4 of Voltron is going to be next week. So for Amy, Audie, Stephen, and myself, thank you so much. Enjoy your chocolate frosted sugar bombs, and we'll see you next week. This has been Those Were the Days.